Osho once said, "Anything achieved through willpower will always remain a burden. It will always carry conflict and inner tension. It requires constant effort to maintain, and that effort will slowly drain your energy. Only what is achieved without force will never become a burden, and only what is not a burden can become lasting." What he calls willpower could also be called control. My understanding is simple. What we try to control eventually slips out of control. Only when we let go can something truly become stable. Control. From age 11 to my mid-40s, my life was colored by inner tension. Like many people, I learned early that self-control was a virtue. But for me, this mechanism intensified dramatically when I was 11. That year, my father had an affair. Before that, I had a happy home. My mother was gentle and attentive. My father was warm and playful, always telling vivid stories. But when his heart moved elsewhere, everything changed. My parents fought constantly, cold silences one moment, shouting and tears the next. As a child, I had no idea what to do. Each time I heard plates breaking or voices rising, my heart tightened. In the China of the 1980s, divorce was rare and carried enormous social stigma. For many families, it felt less like a separation and more like the collapse of an entire life. For my parents, it turned the house into a battlefield. Gradually, I stopped wanting to go home. After school, I would linger on the playground, inventing games just to delay returning. One by one, the other children left. When the school guard was about to lock the gates, I would slowly pick up my bag and walk home. Even when I reached the door, I often stood outside for a long time, unable to push it open. One evening, when I finally did open the door, I saw my father smashing his head against the wall. My mother was sobbing hysterically, pulling his arm. When she saw me, she grabbed me with her other hand and cried, "If we're gone, you must live well with your grandmother." At 11, I didn't fully understand. But I understood one thing with terrifying clarity. Something in my world was collapsing. In that moment, a stream of blood burst from my nose, arching through the air like a red rainbow. Then everything went dark. My older siblings had already left for university. My mother, drowning in despair, and I, paralyzed by fear, became each other's emotional support. At 13, I believed with complete certainty it was my responsibility to hold the family together. From then on, I became hypersensitive to other people's emotions. I learned to read every subtle shift in mood. Whenever tension appeared, I instinctively stepped in to stabilize things. Deep down, all that 11-year-old girl wanted was one thing: stability. Gradually, the central way I interacted with the world became one word: control, including controlling my own body through sheer willpower. What I didn't know was that my first and most devastating failure would appear in the most basic place possible: my relationship with food. Loss of control. When I lay on my bed with a painfully distended stomach, after eating 2 bowls of rice, an entire bag of cream-filled cakes, and 2 sticky rice dumplings, I could never have imagined that years later I would look at a freshly baked pastry filled with molten salted egg yolk and feel absolutely no desire to eat it. But binge eating haunted me for more than 20 years. After the turmoil in my family, food quietly became my emotional refuge. Soon, I gained a lot of weight. By the time I graduated high school, I was 162 centimeters tall and weighed 75 kilograms. When I entered university, I accidentally overheard that some male classmates had given me a cruel nickname: the Big Pig. That was when my obsession with control exploded. I began a brutal diet: 1 meal a day, running 5 kilometers 5 days a week, plus 3 group aerobics classes. Because my motivation was so strong, I lost 20 kilograms within 6 months. The first time I wore a flowing white dress and danced in the university ballroom, I felt an overwhelming sense of triumph. What I didn't realize was that a new monster was approaching. Eventually, the extreme dieting broke me. One winter evening at home, after a normal family dinner, half a flatbread and half a bowl of braised eggplant were left on the table. I washed the dishes. Then I sat with my family watching television. But all I could see was that half flatbread and the eggplant. Finally, I pretended to go to the bathroom. Instead, I slipped into the kitchen. 3 bites, and the food was gone. Then a thought came. Well, I've already broken the diet. I might as well keep eating. So I ate. Anything I could find. I wasn't tasting anything, just shoveling food in mechanically. I ate until I could barely stand. Then I crawled back to my room and lay there, food rising into my throat. After that night, binge eating became routine. I entered a vicious cycle. Diet, loss of control, binge, despair, new diet. Each cycle deepened my shame. For more than 20 years, this cycle followed me like a shadow. I felt trapped inside a black hole with no visible light. Awareness. I had long known the real trigger behind my binge-eating cycle. It was dieting itself. But I was too afraid to stop fighting food. If I stopped controlling it, I feared I would completely lose control of my body and of myself. Then one day, when I was 45, a quiet voice appeared in my mind. How much longer are you going to suffer because of other people's expectations? My weight? To hell with it. I decided to run an experiment. For 1 year, I would completely stop dieting. What was the worst that could happen? Maybe I would gain 10 or 20 kilograms. But if that allowed me to break the binge-eating cycle, it would be worth it. That moment marked the first time I consciously cut the trigger of the cycle. I stopped dieting. At first, I still binged frequently, but I no longer blamed myself. I allowed myself to eat whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. Surprisingly, after 2 months, my weight stabilized. Gradually, something changed. Because food was no longer forbidden, I no longer needed to binge. Slowly, I began to listen to hunger and fullness naturally. For the first time in more than 20 years, I began reclaiming my autonomy from the automatic cycle. From it to you. The philosopher Martin Buber described 2 fundamental ways humans relate to the world: I-it and I-you. In an I-it relationship, we treat things as objects, something to use or manage. In an I-you relationship, we encounter the other as a living presence. We meet, we relate. After turning 50, I began examining my relationships with the world, including my relationships with food, movement, and my own body. I stopped treating food as it. Instead, I began relating to food as you. When I eat nourishing foods, fresh vegetables, good protein, natural carbohydrates, I feel energetic and clear. When I eat overly processed sweets or refined flour, my body becomes heavy and restless. By paying attention, I learned which foods nourish me and which deplete me. When I cook now, I treat the ingredients gently, washing, cutting, steaming, sautéing with care. Meals are placed on a beautiful plate, water poured into a glass. Eating becomes something almost ceremonial. I also stopped treating exercise as it. In the past, exercise was punishment. If I ate too much, I forced myself to burn it off. I would run and push myself until total exhaustion. In weight training, I constantly increased the load until my form collapsed. Even in yoga, when teachers said, "Only go as far as your body allows," I secretly pushed further just to feel the pain. Not surprisingly, I was frequently injured. Now, movement is different. It is cooperation. In strength training, I use what I call my sweet weight, a load that allows perfect form for 12 to 15 repetitions. I do short HIIT sessions twice a week. I also dance. Movement has become expression rather than punishment. Finally, I stopped treating my body as it. For most of my life, I treated my body as something to discipline, fix, or conquer. But what we oppose will oppose us. What we control will eventually rebel. When the shoe fits. The ancient Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi once said, "When the shoe fits, the foot is forgotten." When my relationship with food changed, the struggle with food disappeared. Now, when I walk past shelves of chips and cakes in the supermarket, I simply pass by. It's not that I tell myself, I must not eat. My body simply says, I don't want that. Occasionally, I still eat dessert at a birthday celebration. Sometimes I taste a creative dish at a restaurant. But it's no longer a battle. One day, I held an orange in my palm. I thought about how many days of sunlight and rain had shaped it before it reached my hand. I peeled it slowly, inhaling the fragrance. The juice burst sweet and bright on my tongue. "Thank you," I thought silently. "Thank you for nourishing me." When my relationship with movement changed, the struggle with exercise disappeared too. I enjoy walking mindfully every day. Sometimes I do small strength exercises between remote meetings at home. Movement now leaves me warm and energized, not exhausted. Even if I skip a few days, I no longer feel anxious. My muscles haven't disappeared. In fact, they've become more defined. Friends sometimes say, "You're amazing. You've kept exercising for so many years." I smile. I no longer need discipline. Movement has become maintenance, something as natural as breathing. When the relationship with the body becomes right, the struggle disappears. The shoe finally fits. My skin has grown smoother and clearer. Standing before the mirror, I see a body with gentle, defined muscle lines. "Thank you," I whisper. "Thank you for walking through time with me." I remembered what Osho said, "Only what does not become a burden can become eternal." Today, sometimes I still eat a little too much. Sometimes I stay on the sofa longer than I planned. But none of it is war anymore. It's simply life. And I honestly can't remember the last time I weighed myself.